Alright, welcome back everybody. In case this is the redo, if it's just carrying on from where I left off last time, and if it's all the same episode, then, welcome back. Or, hello. Or, I guess you won't be hearing this. Alrighty. Use the Force, Dorian. I'm pretty sure he's talking about his anger. Yeah, the more rage built up in me. Use it, Dorian. You can't get to him yet, but you can keep yourself and Xavier alive. Alright. Instead, we're lucky enough to have been blessed with a collection of antique weapons that have been preserved in premium condition. Gentlemen, if you'd kindly bring out the rack. He waved his hand towards the side of the arena. There was a clatter of metal as the door to the arena opened, and a large rectangular mass was slid out under a sheet. Once in view of everyone, the two guards handling it whipped off to reveal dozens of weapons beneath. Swords, knives, axes, hammers, maces, all sorts of medieval weaponry. My best guess was they'd found it in one of the storage units here, likely belonging to a collector of the sort. Our contestants will receive their weapon of choice, and that is where the fun really begins. The Fated is unleashed, and one-on-one they battle until only one remains standing. Now, you might be thinking, what happens if a Fated wins? Worry not, my friends. The answer is quite simple. Our next contestant will be sent out to valiantly continue the fight their fallen ally started, until either our participants succeed, or it gets too boring to see it win and we intervene. However, should they manage to kill all our Fated before the end, a special prize will await them all. Does everyone understand? Cheers sounded as the impatient crowd yearned for their entertainment. Their energetic fervor was almost intoxicating. Excellent! Then, without further ado... Tension rose in the air as all the attention was drawn to Alistair, his charisma put into overdrive and becoming almost magnetic. Friends and families of all species, from all manner of homes and places, for those inside and outside the gender binary, and on and off the queer spectrum, that it's like that from TFS, like boys and girls and that technicolor rainbow in between. Today we provide to you the show of a lifetime. Man against monster, predator versus prey. Who shall prevail before the light draws to a close? I am your lovely host, Alice, and I welcome you all to my Wonderland! Upon finishing the sentence, flames appeared to shoot out of his hands, drawing the loudest roar yet from the surrounding crowd. I'd always known he had a flair for the dramatic, but to use it to this degree felt like insanity, going so far as to create his own stage effects. As much as I hated this, what I'd hated more was the part of me that was impressed. To put in this much effort into any kind of production was a difficult feat, especially in such a short time frame in our current world. Yet, I still had absolutely no clue as to his motivations. Was it a desire for power? Attention? It could have been something else entirely, deeper than I knew. The idea alone scared me. That manic look in his eye from yesterday still haunted me. There was something wrong with Alistair. I feared it would burn us all up before we managed to break free of his precious ignited. I was hoping to take a moment further to dwell on the situation when Alistair's voice rang out once more. To start off today's events, we have a special contestant in our midst today. Someone I knew so long ago. Someone who believes he's all that. He spit the words out with a venom, his eyes searching the crowd of prisoners gathered out at the windows before me. I was lucky to have stumbled upon him when I did, having only shown his face here yesterday. But when I looked into those fierce eyes of his, I saw the spirit of a fighter. He's become a changed man since I knew him, it seems, yet I still have my own doubts. Instead, we will give him the chance to prove himself today. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to my soon-to-be dearly departed former love, Dorian! I could feel the corner of my eye twitching, my anger beginning to bubble once more. This bastard had the audacity to make me go first. I narrowed my eyes at the lion through the windows as he waited for me to exit. He wanted to play with fire so badly, huh? As I turned towards the door, I made eye contact with Xavier. The same scared look from last night was plastered on his furry face, but it was somewhat softer degree. I gave him as large a smile as I could muster to comfort him, patting him on the shoulder as I passed. Don't worry, Xavier. I've got this. I thought I heard him say something in response, but it was swallowed by the murmurs of the crowd as the guards grabbed me and forced me to move faster. They pushed me out the door, causing me to stumble in the sand. I quickly caught my footing and made my way to the board. Quiet now, everyone. It seems it's time to see which weapon our intrepid hero shall choose. Ignoring the lion, I scanned the rack for any spears and drew up short. The weapons were all short to medium ranged, allowing the users little distance between them and the enemy. Rounding to the other side, I saw my next best option. Carefully, I withdrew the rapier from its place and tested its balance in my hand. It's a little bit quieter. Oh boy, rapier? Am I pronouncing that right? It was much finer than the fencing foils I'd used in my youth. It gripped comfortable on my palm and finely balanced. There was a slight swish as I slashed it through the air. Our contestant has chosen the rapier! Everyone give him a round of applause for his sportsmanship! Okay, maybe a little bit louder. I like the ambiance it gives. The rack was then glided back into the start room, ready in case someone else had to take a turn at what I would face out here. I ignored the jeers and shouts of the crowd and instead stared straight at Alistair, his eyes boring into mine. He was enjoying this even more than yesterday. Before we draw your fate, is there anything you'd like to say to the crowd? They might just well be your final words. I thought for a moment, trying to decide what to say. He was right in that this could be my end, but I was too stubborn to give him that satisfaction. Deciding to opt out of words, I instead raised my sword towards Alistair. I pointed it straight at him, as if calling his bluff. The message was clear. He didn't break me before, and he wouldn't break me this time. Cocky. Better hope you can live up to that attitude. Cal stepped forward then, holding a bowl out to Alistair filled with several paper slips. Without further ado, let's pick your opponent. Alistair stuck his hand in, swirling the papers before drawing out a single piece and unfolding it. Your future lies behind... The lion paused for dramatic effect, the crowd holding their breath as they waited for the results. My own heart pounded in my chest. Despite my bold response to Alistair, I was terrified. The fated weren't something one messed around with, and despite me trying to keep a calm facade, there was a serious chance I was about to die. Door number 3! A large metal grinding sounded in the space. The doors to one of the shipping crates opened. I hadn't noticed it before, but the one on top it was a jar with ropes coming out of it. The people inside were pulling them, unlocking the door and forcing it open just enough for light to peek into the space. The noise of the arena had ground to a halt at that, my breathing the only thing stopping my anxiety from completely taking over. Any second now. The banging of the door slammed open. The bang of the door slamming open drew startled cries from the crowd as the bang of the door slamming open drew startled cries from the crowd as at long last my opponent slowly emerged. Oh boy. The fated was large, roughly the size of the vampire I'd encountered a mere week ago. However, this one carried a lot more flesh on it. Boy, that's disturbing. It was an amalgamation of parts, fused together to make what stood before me. Facing me was its first skull, sockets hollow with an eye loosely hanging from one, fur trailed down its neck, leading to the bulging body. Its skin was smooth but lumpy, looking as if it were malleable to the touch. It had the same gray tones as that of clay as well. Another skull carrying antlers emerged from its back, as if the body had absorbed whoever it once belonged to. Though it only had one arm, the two additional appendages that stuck out like that of an insect made up for it. As it ambled out into the arena, slowly at first, It began its dash towards me, ready to catch its first prey in who knows how long. Oh geez, just starting immediately, okay. The creature wasn't too fast, not like the others I'd encountered, likely due to its mass. I was able to easily dodge out of the way of its first swing. The faded arm smashed into the sand, throwing up a spray of dust. It spun with me, tracking my movement with its eye. It slammed its paw down and I jumped at the last moment. I swung my sword at the limb and sliced clean through it. The sensation caught me off guard, confusing me for a moment. A rapier was a heavy weapon, yes, but it was still thin and flexible, a tool meant for piercing and slashing, without the girth or momentum to sever bone. Upon looking at my rapier, there was a lack of the distinct black blood that most faded carry. There was a shine of some kind of fluid, though what kind I had no clue. The growl from the faded drew my attention back to it, showing the arm still attached. It didn't make sense. I knew I'd cut it. Then from beneath it, I saw the severed arm, only it wasn't lying motionless on the ground. It was scurrying towards me, claws scratching at the sand in a desperate attempt to gain traction. I backed up, trying to give myself some time to think. The faded seemed to know what I wanted, though, and closed in on me. It moved with more vigor than before, likely enraged at me literally slicing its arm off. Precisely, I sliced again, cutting off more from its body as I circled around it. Sure enough, the fallen pieces brought themselves to life and hurried after me. The lumps rolled, crawled, and threw themselves across the ground trying to get to me. I watched the main body carefully as it regenerated, desperately searching for any discernible weakness. The closest I could get was what it took from its existing mass to build the missing portion. The closest I could get was that it took from its existing mass to build the missing portion, the faded growing smaller over time. In return, the smaller size made it more agile. It didn't toss clouds of sand up as it moved anymore, but it was getting harder to dodge its attacks. I didn't want to slice any more of it off, but I didn't have much of a choice. Its flesh was too soft, and the rapier was in incredible condition. A sharp pain pierced my lower thigh. A blob had caught up to me without me noticing. It had flung itself on my leg, latching onto the flesh through my pants. I batted away with my blade, piercing through it as it fell to the ground. The sheer amount of blobs chasing after me was getting harder and harder to keep track of. I was struggling to avoid them all, not to mention the main body lunging after me. This is one insane boss fight. 2 blobs slammed into me from different angles, one against my back and one on my non-dominant hand. They bit into the flesh and I spun around to remove them, my panic rising. There was a way to defeat this, but how? That's a good question. Step on him? I stared at the main body, smaller and more agile now. There had to be a hint of how to kill this thing from its origin. Let's see. If it's regenerating, it's keeping its distance from me now, allowing the scattered body parts to have their way with me instead. If I reduce its size further, I might have a shot. It was incredibly risky, but I had no other ideas. I was growing desperate. Carefully weaving my way around the pieces, I went for it with all I had. I swung my rapier as it spun to the side, shrugging off most of my blow. It barely managed to make contact, its agility letting it keep far away from me. It jumped back as it took a swipe at me, its claws lashing across my forehead. Blood began to trickle into my right eye and forced it shut. Oh shoot. I panted, desperate to find a way to win. My eyes scanned the field and I finally saw it. Past all the parts that surrounded me and its body, hidden all the way in the back in the shadows of the storage container it had been housed in, was another lump of flesh. This one was darker than the others and nearly indistinguishable from the rest aside from one key detail. It was the only one pulsating. An iridescent sheen like the fluid that spewed from its noxious veins covered the surface. So it's like which Titan? It's like that one Titan I can't remember. I'm losing it right now. the not the armor Titan, not the beast, not the female, not the attack Titan, not the colossal. Not the founding Titan, right? No, it's the not the armor Titans. It's okay. I have to find the answer. It's bugging me. Where's my phone? Not the colossal, it's the, dang it. The Warhammer. It's just like the Warhammer Titan. Basically the part of it that's significant, because it can basically keep regenerating, is hidden off to the side. Okay, I got it. This was my last chance, my final gambit at surviving this fight to the death. I stared at the faded, circling the field of flesh till I had separated it in its origin. I lunged forward towards it, then fainted and spun in the other direction. Sand sprayed everywhere as I pushed toward the container. It was harder in the sand of the arena, but I was making good progress. A roar of fury sounded from behind me. The container shook as it caught on, racing to reach me before I closed in on its core. It was a race to the finish, and I only had a few seconds head start. I could hear the footsteps gaining on me as we drew closer to our mutual goal, trying to beat the other to the dark enclosure. The faded was practically breathing down my neck as I reached the structure. With one final push, I flung myself forward, rapier extended like a radiant beam of light. A wet squelch marked the sound of my hit. Ugh. I watched as black blood burbled out of the hole I'd made, seconds before the mass of the body behind me collided with my own and sent me sprawling. There was a dull thud of flesh against metal as I hit the wall of the container, blinding pain shooting through my back as I gasped. Stars danced in my vision as I looked from my place on the ground back towards the entrance. The pulsing lump of flesh was now deflated and unmoving. The main body and other bits were as well. Oh my gosh. I pulled myself to my feet, using the wall for support. My body ached as I made my way to the center of the arena. I was lucky I hadn't been hit anywhere vital, but I'd need some recovery time. You won! I turned towards the stands, staring back at Alistair and pointing my rapier towards him once more. Are you not entertained? It was hard to tell from this distance, but rather than the shock I'd been hoping for, I was met with one of smug certainty, like he'd expected this outcome. It seems we have our first winner of the day! If the crowd had been cheering during the fight, I'd been too focused to tell, but I could hear nothing but their praise now. I had played Alistair's little game and fallen right into his hands, serving as his circus freak for the world to see. A group of bandits emerged from the door and began picking up the pieces of the scattered, throwing them into the door it originally emerged from. I could only stand and wait for Alistair to speak next. The door back to the waiting room sealed once more. Quite a performance, if I do say so myself. I can tell Dorian has quickly become a candidate for the favorite of today's event. I glared up at him. Even now, he still shows that fighting spirit. I'd say to give this man a hand, but he's already cut off enough for the day. Ha 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 ha. Somehow the laughter from the audience was even worse than their cheers. Instead of facing my captors, I strode back to the door I'd come from as they brought the weapons rack back out. It's going to be tough for our next candidate to beat that show, but he can certainly try. This contender joined our previous one on their journey here. A duo of two friends who might just be more than they say they are. I continued forward, ignoring the obvious jab. He's tall, lean, and ready to leave our arena with a red sheen. Up next we have Xavier! I felt my blood begin to boil at his words, wishing I could knock some sense into him. I hated that Xavier would have to go next, but I was in no condition to volunteer for his place. As I passed the rack, I placed the rapier on it while looking it over again. The mental imagery of Xavier's face when I left pressing itself to the forefront of my mind. It clicked then. Why he'd worn that fearful look as he emerged from the room. That look was still present on his face. We'd been given our choice of weapons from this rack, something to help us in close combat during our fights. In other words, there were no bows. Xavier was weaponless. Oh no. I didn't even think about that. To be continued! Ah, shoot. Okay then. Ah, man, Xavier's weaponless. Shoot. I mean, we got to man. You're welcome. Eden's Reach. Project New Moon. Oh, man. What's this? Oh, it takes me to somewhere else. Oops. Let me return to the main menu. Maybe this will be a new visual novel. Man, well, great job to Project New Moon on this. Okay, I didn't expect that. What to do now? Because we still have a bit more that we can get into with all this here. Oh, man. Well, thank you guys for enjoying. This is also something I want to try. There's a new like little section of stuff that they do, but that'll probably have to be for next time. Thank you guys for tuning in. I can't believe this brings us to the end of One Last Night for now. Like I said, I probably will do a little bit more with this Lost Entries thing, depending on how long this is. But yeah, we're gonna be starting a new visual novel on this channel too. Most likely Kingsguard. So keep tuned. Stay tuned for that. Also, feel free to leave some more suggestions because, like I said, love to keep some more in my back catalog for later on. But I hope you guys like this. Congratulations to Project New Moon again. A really compelling story here. It's only getting better. So I'm really curious as to where this is going to go for now. And I'm glad I got some more animatic fodder. Oh no, Xavier! Okay, but for now, we're going to have to call it here. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, good evening, whatever it is for you. And I hope you stay tuned for the rest that I'll be uploading onto this channel in the future. Keep in mind, I've got a new channel that I'm going to be launching soon. It's going to be a bit of a gaming channel and I think an art channel too. Because I'm practicing some animation. You know, you can follow me on Twitter or Twitch or to TikTok even to get more information on that. But as of now, oh, that's cute. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, this is it for now. Take care, you guys. Till next time. Bye now.